Something just happened in the crypto market, and almost nobody is paying attention. This isn't just a dip in price. This isn't a standard correction. This isn't even the usual cycle of hype and panic we've all grown used to. No, what we're witnessing right now is a reset moment. A quiet but seismic shift that's going to separate the noise from the signal. And if you miss it, you may look back months from now and realize this was the turning point. At the very center of this reset, Ripple XRP, and the invisible financial plumbing being laid down in silence. Now, let me be crystal clear. This isn't about green candles or red charts. It's not about meme coins pumping and dumping, or influencers shouting to the moon on Twitter. This is about infrastructure, the kind of power plays happening behind closed doors, while everyday investors are distracted. Think about it. Every time there's a so-called reset in history, it doesn't look obvious in the moment. It looks boring, hidden, technical. But later, when the dust settles, you realize the entire playing field was rewritten. That's what's happening right now. While retail is busy chasing hype coins, debating which NFT is the next gold mine, or arguing over which L2 is going to dominate, something far more important is moving into place. Financial rails, cross-border payment systems, settlement layers that don't just serve speculators but governments, institutions, and central banks. And if you think that sounds dramatic, ask yourself, why do you think regulators, banks, and payment giants keep circling around Ripple? Why do you think partnerships keep quietly stacking up, while the headlines focus on other distractions? Because XRP isn't just another coin. It's part of the reset. It's part of the backbone being installed underneath the chaos. And here's the kicker. This reset isn't just about Ripple's survival after lawsuits or crypto's adoption by Wall Street. It's about the entire global money system shifting gears. A realignment that could change how trillions of dollars move daily and who controls the switches. So let me warn you, once you understand what just shifted, you'll never look at this market the same way again. Because history isn't being written on the charts. It's being written behind the curtain. And today, we're pulling that curtain back. The market reset, nobody saw coming, expanded. The crypto market just went through something that most people haven't even realized yet. On the surface, it looked like just another shift in price action. Bitcoin bouncing up and down, altcoins bleeding, liquidity moving between exchanges. To most retail investors, it was nothing unusual. Just another cycle, another dip, another pump. But underneath all of that noise, a deeper shift quietly took place. Something far bigger than a correction. Something far more permanent than a temporary pullback. What we just witnessed wasn't a correction. It was a reset. Now let's pause here. What does a reset really mean? It's not about prices moving up or down. It's not about day traders winning or losing trades. A reset happens when the entire framework of the game changes. When the rules are rewritten, when the power shifts hands, when the system itself begins to restructure from the inside out. That is exactly what we're seeing right now in crypto. For years, this space has been driven by hype cycles and narratives. Bitcoin as digital gold. Ethereum as the future of finance. Meme coins as lottery tickets that make millionaires overnight. And while those stories kept retail investors distracted, something much more serious has been happening behind the curtain. Institutions, regulators, governments, they weren't playing the same game retail was playing. They weren't chasing pumps or arguing over whether XRP would hit $1, $5, or $10. They were focused on something else entirely, control of the infrastructure. And this latest shift in the market, that was the moment the power started to consolidate. Away from retail traders, away from social media speculation, and into the hands of those quietly building the rails of the next financial system. Here's the catch. Most investors missed it completely. They were too busy staring at charts, celebrating green candles, panicking over red ones, or fighting in comment sections about which coin is the real winner. But behind all of that noise, the reset was happening. Liquidity corridors changing hands. Settlement layers being tested. Governments quietly refining digital asset policies. Central banks discussing tokenized currencies. The very plumbing of money itself being re-engineered in real time. And right in the middle of this shift, Ripple and XRP. While the spotlight was on the volatility of meme coins, while everyone was hypnotized by predictions and drama, Ripple has been quietly embedding itself into the financial backbone of the global economy. Bank partnerships, payment corridor integrations, central bank pilots. Not speculation, not hype, infrastructure. This reset wasn't about price. It wasn't about who caught the latest pump. It was about positioning. Positioning for the moment when the old rails, the outdated, clunky SWIFT system, finally gives way to the new digital highways being built right under our noses. If you zoom out, you'll realize this isn't the kind of event that happens every cycle. Resets like this are rare. They don't just shift charts, they redefine who survives, who thrives, and who gets left behind entirely. Think about it like the dot-com bubble. Most internet companies back then vanished, but the few who were positioned correctly, Amazon, Google, Apple, went on to dominate the world. That's the kind of inflection point crypto is in right now. And XRP is not chasing hype. It's positioning itself to be one of those survivors, not just a survivor, but a cornerstone of the new system. So when we say reset, we're not talking about a temporary shakeup. We're talking about the beginning of a structural transition, a shift from retail-driven speculation to institutional dominance, from chaos and hype cycles to real-world adoption, from outdated banking systems to blockchain-powered settlements. And the craziest part? 99% of the market hasn't caught on yet. They're still distracted by the circus, while the real players quietly prepare for the next era of money. Now let's zoom in on what this reset actually means, because it's not just a fancy word. When I say reset, I'm talking about a structural shift in the way money is moved, controlled, and even defined. See, in traditional markets, a reset happens when the old system simply can't sustain itself anymore. Think back to 1971, when the US abandoned the gold standard. Overnight, money was no longer tied to gold, and the dollar became the global reserve currency. That was a reset. Or look at 2008, when the global financial crisis exposed the cracks in banks and forced governments to pump trillions into the system. Another reset. What we're witnessing right now in the crypto markets, especially with Ripple and XRP, has that same energy. It's not just about prices dipping or spiking. It's about the plumbing of finance being quietly rewired while the average person is distracted. Central banks are racing to launch digital currencies. Institutions are testing blockchain rails, and regulatory frameworks are being rewritten in real time. The system we knew just a few years ago is being gutted and rebuilt. And here's the kicker, XRP is sitting at the center of that reconstruction. Why XRP? Because while Bitcoin is treated as digital gold and Ethereum powers smart contracts, XRP was built for one thing and one thing only, moving value quickly, cheaply, and across borders. And right now, as liquidity crunches ripple through global markets, governments and banks need exactly that: fast, scalable settlement solutions. And if you think this is just theory, look at the patterns. The lawsuits, the partnerships, the banking integrations, these aren't coincidences. This is preparation. It's like watching chess masters set up the board long before the winning move is made. Here's the part that should make you sit up. The reset isn't waiting for retail investors to catch on. It's already happening in backrooms, test pilots, and closed-door meetings. By the time the public sees the headlines, the infrastructure will already be in place, and the new system will be live. This isn't speculation anymore. It's transition. The bigger picture, Ripple's role in the reset. Now let's zoom out for a second, because this reset moment we're seeing, it's not happening in isolation. Think about how financial history always moves, in cycles of old systems breaking down and new systems taking their place. Gold gave way to fiat. Cash gave way to digital banking. SWIFT became the backbone of international settlements. And now, that backbone is creaking. Right now, across the world, there's a quiet race happening. A race to define what the next global financial operating system looks like. Central banks are experimenting with digital currencies. The BRICS nations are openly discussing alternatives to the US dollar in cross-border trade. And major payment giants, Visa, MasterCard, even PayPal, are restructuring their strategies around blockchain rails. But here's the twist. While Bitcoin remains the store of value narrative and Ethereum tries to brand itself as the Web3 backbone, Ripple and XRP are carving out a lane nobody else is aggressively pursuing. Real-time institutional-grade settlement at scale. Let's not forget, Ripple is already embedded with over 300+ financial institutions worldwide. These aren't just startups in crypto, we're talking about Santander, Bank of America, SBI Holdings, Standard Chartered, and central banks testing RippleNet and XRP Ledger as potential settlement layers. And what just shifted is that this reset moment proves the narrative. Traditional finance is no longer asking, should we adopt blockchain? They're asking which blockchain can handle our trillion-dollar pipelines without breaking? XRP isn't designed for hype cycles or meme culture. It's engineered for liquidity on demand, for moving billions instantly across borders, something no meme coin, no NFT trend, and no speculative Layer 2 token can replicate. Now think about what that means in the bigger picture. If Swift was the language of money for the 20th century, XRP could quietly be becoming the language of money for the 21st century. This reset, it's not just about price charts correcting. It's about the power structures behind global money movement rearranging themselves, and XRP is sitting at the negotiating table while most of retail doesn't even realize the meeting is happening. And when the dust settles, the average investor may look back and realize they were busy arguing about Dogecoin while Ripple was busy helping to rewrite the rails of international finance. The shift that changes everything. Here's the part most people don't get. What's happening with Ripple and XRP isn't just about a token going up or down. It's about the plumbing of money itself being rewritten while the rest of the world argues over distractions. Think about this. For decades, Swift has been the invisible backbone of how trillions of dollars move between countries every single day. If you wanted to send $10 million from New York to Tokyo, it didn't matter if you were a bank, a corporation, or even a government, you had to go through Swift. It was slow, expensive, and filled with middlemen taking their cut. And yet, everyone tolerated it, because there was no alternative. Until now, Ripple has quietly positioned XRP as the settlement layer, the actual bridge that connects currencies instantly, at fractions of a penny, without waiting days for confirmation. And here's the kicker. It's not retail investors leading the charge. It's institutions, central banks, and payment giants that are testing, adopting, and slowly embedding this technology into their systems. Why do you think the lawsuits, the delays, the endless FUD campaigns have dragged on for years? Because the stakes are that big. We're not just talking about flipping a coin from 50 cents to $5. We're talking about rewriting how the global financial bloodstream works. And if XRP becomes the default bridge currency, even partially, it changes the entire game. Cross-border remittances that once cost $40 and took 4 days could now cost cents and settle in seconds. Banks that once relied on Nostrovostro accounts to hold billions in trapped liquidity could free up that capital overnight. Governments struggling with currency stability could rely on an instant settlement mechanism not tied to the dollar, giving them breathing room in a multipolar world. This isn't just about profit. It's about control. Whoever controls the rails of global money movement controls leverage over nations, economies, and power itself. And here's the eerie part, the reset we're seeing right now, this quiet pivot, feels intentional. Almost like certain players knew the old system was reaching its breaking point, and they've been preparing the new rails all along. So when you hear people arguing over meme coins, or whether Bitcoin is going to $60,000 or $65K, realize they're focused on the noise. The signal, the real shift, is buried in the infrastructure moves happening behind closed doors. Because the truth is, markets don't reset around hype. They reset around power shifts. And that's exactly what's unfolding with Ripple, XRP, and the silent adoption happening in the background. Stay with me, because once you connect the dots in the outro, you'll realize this isn't just a financial upgrade. It's a global reset in disguise. So let's take a step back. Think about what we've just unpacked. We're not talking about speculation, hype cycles, or the usual crypto noise. What we're witnessing is a reset of the financial operating system, and Ripple is sitting right in the middle of it. While headlines distract the masses, the silent gears of global finance are being rewired, tested, and positioned for rollout. If this truly is the reset moment, then every investor, every trader, every builder in this space has a decision to make. Will you pay attention now, or will you wait until the shift is obvious, when it's already too late? Because make no mistake, By the time retail finally catches on, by the time CNBC runs it as breaking news, the foundations will already be locked in, the winners will already be positioned, and the market will have already priced it in. That's why it's so critical to stay plugged into conversations like this, to understand not just the surface-level headlines, but the undercurrent of real power shifts happening behind the curtain. And here's the deal, this story doesn't end here. The reset is only beginning. The partnerships, the legal wins, the infrastructure being laid down right now, they all point towards something much bigger than just one coin or one company. It's about who controls the rails of money for the next 50 years. So, if you want to keep catching these insights before they go mainstream, if you want to position yourself on the right side of history instead of scrambling after the fact, make sure you stick with this channel. Hit that like button so the algorithm knows this is content worth sharing. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Do you believe Ripple is at the center of this reset? Or do you think another player will emerge? And most importantly, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next few weeks could bring even bigger revelations, and you don't want to be the last to know. This is bigger than a market cycle. This is bigger than a token. This is the reset. And you're here at the very start of it.